picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
Well, hello again. It's Monday and time to start another week, or actually pick up on another week, since I did a little work over the weekend on the Batplane and on Dracula as well. So now let me go cut in what I did Saturday and Sunday, and then we'll bring you back to where we are right now. What you have here is a table full of Batplane, and since I have no instructions and I keep harping on that, I'm sorry. What I'm doing is what I call the harmless building. Things that are right and left halves of pieces that I know, hey, that's two pieces, that's the right and left of that. Or these missiles, they are right and left, so I can go ahead and knock those out, because I know they don't impact anything else other than themselves. Things like landing gear. Now, as much as I can tell, this kit is designed to be built one of two ways. You can do it with the wings folded up and or the wings folded down, and with the landing gear out or the landing gear up. So what I think I'm going to do is sort of a hybrid. I'm going to do, we'll see if it's possible. It may not even be possible, but I am going to do the wings flat out, but with landing gear on. I think that's going to be the best combination. So, and we'll see about lighting. I know that there are lights in the headlights, which are right up here, and I know there are lights in the engines, which are on the back. They're somewhere in here. So that may be simple enough to light. Now, Tom, before he sent this to me, the wonderful Tom Parker, he has the cockpit tub. He needs that for his own nefarious purposes, so I have no cockpit. What I'm going to try to do is leave this open enough that I can pull the top part off and sink the cockpit in once I get it from him. I'm going to have to see if that is feasible to even do that. It may be that the parts glue together in such a way that I can't. So we'll find that out together. But what I'm doing, like I said, is investigating and seeing which parts go together and which ones can go together without impacting the others. So before I got too far and ended up covering up something, I wanted to show you that. Good afternoon. It is Sunday, and yes, I'm still cheating a bit. I'm playing around with this Batwing on my own time, as it were, and not as part of the weekly builds. I wanted to give you guys who are interested in picking this kit up when it comes out, and really who wouldn't be, a little heads up of how much shelf space you need to count on. This kit is a whopping, I'd say a comfortable 20 inches across and about 18 deep. And it will stand probably about 7 inches, maybe 6 inches tall when it's done. And that's just giving a comfortable amount of airspace around it. So count on that much space of it taking up. Be it on your shelf, or this might actually be a better kit to hang. I think it'd be more impressive if you hung it. Anyway, you can see why, if a kit is that big, why they would want to give you the option to display it with the wings folded up. And if you choose to do that, you're kind of in for a penny, in for a pound, because I don't think there's a way to have both. It's not. The wings aren't adjustable. They're either in the raised position or they're in the flight position. So choose wisely, as they say. And you can see where if you were to do the wing folded up, it would come out looking something like that. So it still makes an impressive display. It is just a matter of preference. Now, what I'm going to do today, because I want to do a little bit more pre-construction before I start putting things together, is I want to put these two wing halves, these two big impressive turkey legs, I want to put those together. Now, unfortunately, what you need to do before you do that is take care of this vent business, because there does not seem to be an insert for that. So it just kind of goes into nothingness. And if you look at it through, oh, hold on, do this with both hands here. If you put the two pieces together and you hold it up like that, you can see straight through it. What I'm going to do is just take some black sandable primer and just prime the inside of that wing so that it kind of just goes into black, and that's all you're seeing is black inside there. I'm going to do that inside the wings, and I'm going to do that inside the, these are the back engines. I'm going to do that inside those recesses there. While the kit is still in pieces, it will make it a whole lot easier to paint now than after you've put it together. You can always touch it up after it's together, but for right now it's easier to hit it with a big can of spray paint. And then I'm going to put it aside until the actual work week commences. And here you can see a table full of Batwing. Yes, and it does take up the full table. And this is what I was cheating on earlier in the week. But the important thing is that I wanted to get a lot of these sub-assemblies done. And I wanted to get some primer on them, but it is currently raining outside, so no priming today. I want to tell you that this model, the subject matter at least, has got more hatches in it and more things that fold out than a Swiss Army knife. It looks like it's got, excuse me, it's got landing gear wells, it's got gun wells, it's got a, I don't even know exactly what that is, but it's a door that covers up a vent. It's got doors that cover up this intake engine. It's got an optional cover for the big Gatling guns on the front. And it's got the option of putting the wings, you know, in a flight mode or in a parked mode. So that's a lot of options you get for your buck. For this particular build, though, I am going with the Suns Out, Guns Out version. It is the wings out and all of the guns are showing and all of the gear and all of the hatches open idea, with the wings straight out, not folded up. These tall wings go here. Now that is supposed to be a seam. That's supposed to be a joint right there, because these wings would fold up like this. So when I glue this down eventually, I am not going to try to fill that joint in, because that is a seam that should be there, whereas that is a seam that shouldn't be there, and I will try to fill that in. So, you know, it's the things you suss out when you are poking and prodding. And to change gears completely, over onto the Dracula. I'm taking inspiration from the wet, rainy weather outside, and I decided to make my cobblestones wet in front of the castle. And I've started on painting the flame on the torch, but just a little bit of fuchsia on a brush, and I've made those stones permanently wet. All I have left to do really on him is to glue his wee noggin in, and I'm doing some work on I have a vest or a ribbon and a what do you call that? A ribbon and a medallion that need to go on here, and then final touches on the cape. Now, if there was anything I would redo about this kit, it would probably be the cape. This was a wonderful piece, but it's kind of thick, and it doesn't really fit down over the body as well as you might hope it would. So it takes a little bit of maneuvering to get into place, and it looks kind of like an overcoat more than just a drapey capey. So I need to do a little bit of refinement on that before I'm ready to glue it into place. And then we're just playing with the background. And then one last bit is working on the Nautilus, and I need to continue work on it. Good morning, it's Tuesday. It's another dreary day outside, so I figured I should get back to work on the Batwing. And here's a prime example, I made a pun, a prime example of why gray primer is better than black primer. Black primer does not show you things like this, and I'm trying to zoom in on it so you can see. This wing, or both wings, are all about closing up that nice seam along the whole edge and blending it down and smoothing it and sanding it. And you can see right in there, oh, there you go. You can see right in there where those two pieces did not get joined properly, and I had that seam sprayed black, and I couldn't tell. Once I sprayed it over with the gray, I could see that that seam was still open. So now I know that I need to finish that off. Well, good morning. It is Thursday. It is the 4th day in a row of perpetual gloom outside. But at least today is the first day it's not actively raining. So maybe the wood outside will get a chance to dry off, and we will get reinvigorated on the construction work outside, which has ground to a dead stop because of the weather. So I've got 2 kits that I can work on the table. The Batwing takes up way too much room and needs to be kind of painted inside and out. So I've got two kits within striking distance of being finished, and that is the Dracula kit here and the Nautilus kit here. And I want to make some good strides at getting both of them done this weekend. So, like I said, I've got just a few details left. Working on the base, and I don't know whether you can tell it here, but I've done some futuring in amongst the cracks of the walkway to make it look like it has freshly rained, because that is on my mind. So I'm working on the detail here. I've got a little bit left to go on the creature of the night himself. I've got the aftermarket ribbon and medallion, and that's the aftermarket ribbon on his chest. And I have a medallion to attach to that, and that'll complete his look. And I'm still working on the cape. I've got some accents to paint on it. But right now I'm doing the atmospheric stuff, like painting the torch and the skull and the rat and things like that. So let's get back to that, and then we can turn our attention to the Nautilus. Now, since the last time you saw him, I did do some more pinks and oranges on the squid, the Zoidberg, and I do want to do some research about how to paint that eye, and then I'll be back to that. But maybe we'll get this wired in today. You never know. Well, maybe, but today or tomorrow. But I'm going to start doing some hand brushing on the weathered details, or the weathered bronze details. So let's get to it. Okay, I've just gone through another round of model roulette, where I've just gone around and just picked at different things. And we're getting down to the wire on some stuff. I'm really liking where the wall is and the door. I may hit it with a coat of dust like I want to do, because I would like to do something, I think, to break up the gloss from the flat, from this and that. There just needs to be some tonal differences going on that. I like what is happening with the cape finally. That's an awful lot of big black, and if you don't start putting some different tones in there, it can, and you're depending on light to do all of that, it can get a bit monotonous to look at, a bit monolithic, no pun intended. So by putting some gray on the highlights and some smoke in the creases, and doing the same thing in here, putting some white on the highlights, it really breaks the color and makes it less of a big black hole, if you were, of color. The octopus, after doing some research on what an octopus's eye looks like, which looks something like that, I need to put some flecks around it, but I'm waiting for it to dry. And a red wash around it is really getting to the color that I want. That's looking really good. The Nautilus continues to go well. I'm refining some of the staining or the weathering, and I'm playing with what's happening along the bottom, introducing some copper color in there, even though I don't want to go with the stereotypical copper that you see most Nautilus kits done in. But I need to wait for this to dry and then go back in with a fine brush and hit some more highlights with the aging on the bronze. And that leaves things like the torch, which, you know, I'm just going back and forth on how to paint fire. It's not an easy thing to do. And the skull, let's see. Pretty happy. I'm almost ready to say his body is done. And I am going to hit the skin on the face with one more blending tone of the flesh to kind of unify that. It's kind of looks like makeup at this point. It needs to look softer. So I'm going to let this dry for a little bit and then come back in, and then I think it's going to be ready to put together. I think that when these kits are finished, it will be a race to the finish line. It'll be a photo finish. They will all be done practically at the same time. So I'm going to stand back from those, let the work I've done this morning kind of sink in, and then reevaluate what I like and what I don't like, and come back at it again this evening. Okay, just put the finishing touches on Hair Dracula here. Got the medallion on and the ribbon, and glued his head on. His noggin is finally attached. Now the last thing I need to do is put a get some future and put a drop over both of his eyes and his lip to give that a little bit of a gloss. But other than that, this part of him is done, and that narrows down the things left to do on this kit to putting a clear coat on the cape and putting the cape on him and making myself happy with that torch. It's mostly there. It's almost there. It's not quite finished. And then I've just got the little wee rat and the skull. Skull is appropriately bone color, but I think I want to put in some browns, just some stain, and I'll wash over that to make it look more aged. So that's to go, and then we'll have to determine whether I'm going to keep that glossy, watery look on this cobblestones, or whether I'm going to try something different with it. But I went over the main stones with a dry brush, and I'm very happy with how those turned out. So the question of don't touch it, leave it alone, and come back to it, see if I'm still happy. But I think I am. I think I am. I think I am. I'm going to do an overall dust coat over the background, though. Hopefully that will bring out the finishes that I want to bring out. Okay, I just got back from pulling in the octopus in his garden. It was out in the other room because I was putting many coats of gloss on it. Now these parts are rubber, basically. They're thick vinyl. They have to be protected from, if you bend them too much, the paint will crack off. That's just going to happen. So what I'm going to do is glue them in. When I put the sub in place, I'm going to glue the sub to it, and then touch up any paints that I have to, but I'm going to try to super glue him to the sub. But it's just going to be nature of the beast, no pun intended, that some paint is likely to crack off, or crack in, as this case may be. Since it's a sea beastie, it's a Kraken. So I'm going to run some wiring up through here so that I can join it to the Nautilus and then pull the wiring back down through. Well, good morning and happy Friday to you. Yes, it is Friday, last day of the work week for me, and I'm going to attempt to get these two kits, as he zooms back out, these two kits knocked out today. Dracula, very close to being done. I have re-wetted the cobblestones, as it were. I thought that I had done an overabundance of too much water effect on the stones. So what I did was I dusted everything on this base, and then that gave me the interesting little second layer of residual dampness, like when it's just after it's rained and the stones are starting to dry back out, but there's still some moisture, but it's not completely wet. That's what that is. And then I went back in with the future just in the cracks and some little puddling, not nearly as bad as I had it before. But And I'm giving the 2-level effect of moisture on the bricks, which I really like a lot better. I've got the skull in. Let's see, about the only thing I've got left to do is make myself happy with this flame. And of course, you know, every time you try to paint a flame, you get that stereotypical 3-color look. It looks like candy corn by the time you're done. So I'm going to try to hit this now, let this dry a little bit, hit it with a white over the top of that, just to kind of blend those colors in, and then it'll be done. And Dracula himself is done. I've got the future on the eyes and the lips to give him a nice gloss. He's got the hypnotic stare going on. He's got the ribbon going on and the medallion. He's on his base. The only thing he needs is to get the cape on, and the cape is in the other room. I have been hitting it with successive coats of gloss on the inside for this, you know, I guess the satiny look inside, and then actual satin on the outside, which should give it a little bit duller of a look. But that's going to finish Hair Dracula. And the next thing to do is to finish up the Nautilus. Now, the Nautilus, I'm really happy with the bottom of that. I've hit this also with some dust, and I've done the future on those windows. I need to do the future on this side. But I'm still doing some touches and patches, and I'm not quite, you know, I'll be fiddling with that, I'm sure, up until the bitter end. And the octopus is also in the other room, drying from multiple coats of gloss. So the next step is to figure out what else I need to add to this base. I'm thinking I want to do some seaweeds or stuff, so I may want to go to a pet store and see about finding some aquarium seaweed to go on here. So I may be doing a road trip this afternoon. And here we come to putting the cape on Dracula, and I can see why some people are tempted to leave this cape off. It is ill-fitting. It has nothing to do with, well, it has everything to do with the thickness of plastic. I mean, you just can't put those sheets and have it conform to every little nook and cranny of your character underneath, like it would if it were a cloth. So I think what I am going to be forced to do is to fill the area under his arm. Just put some clear epoxy in there, some 1-minute epoxy underneath the arm and underneath the armpit there. And I don't know how well this is up in that area there. And then just hold him up in place and hold that cape down to fit it around his shoulders as best as possible, because you're just never going to get that tight finish. And of course it's opening up a seam there that has to be patched. So if I have to check to see if I've got any 1-minute epoxy on hand, and if I don't, I may have to make that part of my run as well today. But it just, if it were cloth, obviously it would hang differently, because it wouldn't have those nice folds in there. But it's just, I mean, the profile is good. I like that. The collar is a little bit wonky, but it's just sitting up a little high, and to push it down and to get him to fit into it better is the goal. It's not a very dignified position that he finds himself in, but you will notice that the cape is on, and mostly the same color, and nothing horrible happened. Right now I've got the second shellacking of epoxy and letting gravity do its thing and just settle down in underneath his armpit there. But it was a few tense moments. Oh, it's still warm. I can feel through the plastic where the epoxy is curing, because it's heating up quite nicely. But the first one was kind of keep it in place, and the second application is fine-tuning. So I wanted to get his fist up into his cape where it should be. So yeah, let's zoom back out. Keep his fist up into his cape where it should be. So I needed to position that, clamp it, and then put some more glue on it, or epoxy on it, to let it set up. So I need to let gravity do its thing and let these let it cure for a few minutes. Okay, I'm back and starting to work on the base, and I was starting to work with the stuff I got from the pet store for the aquarium, and I wasn't liking it, and I don't know why, and I kind of figured out it was the fake colors. So I got the old vinyl adhesion paint out and tried to see if I could paint over this rubber, because it's basically, I mean, it's vinyl. It's not going to hold paint very well. I mean, it's going to crack if you touch it. So get the old vinyl adhesion promoter on, and we're going to see how well how well the paint sticks to it. Also found this nice little in the aquarium supply. I found this nice little thing to go on the back of the base, which is kind of in scale with. You can imagine that might be in scale with some of the Nautilus. So I thought it was kind of nice. I was going to go back there or something like that. And now I just got to figure about drilling holes and sticking plants in it and repainting the plants to make this base a little bit more interesting before I sit the sub on it like that. It's going to go kind of a weird angle. And I'm going to use the shrubberies to disguise the wiring. So that's how that's going to go. And Dracula over here is kind of healing from all of the abuse he's been given. I do need to touch up the paint. Nice thing about the epoxy is it really gives them some weight and some heft to them, and makes them a little bit more substantial. But now I've got to touch up and sand and refinish all of the paint that has been abused in this last operation. So we don't know whether or not that's going to get finished tonight or not. Who knows? It's getting into mid-Friday afternoon, and it's about the time I start winding down. So I might drill some holes and plug some plants and call it a day. And here's where we're going to close it out for the week. Didn't quite get everything completely finished, although I'll have to say Dracula is 99.7% done. I have to decide whether I'm going to replace that torch with a lighting effect, but I don't have to do that today because it's isolated away from everything else, so it's not really going to matter. The important thing is the gentleman has finished everything else that matters, and he's got his little rat buddy and the skull over there, and the door and the stones and all that looks great. What is not quite as far along is the Nautilus stand, because I shot myself in the foot by deciding to make it a lot more complicated than it was originally intended to be. So therefore it did not get finished. But I may work on it some this weekend, because I want to get back to the Batplane, and I don't like having kits this close to being done and then not finish them. And that's where we're going to call it for this week. A disappointing week, no bones about it. The weather, you know, I'm very sensitive to the weather. When it's crappy outside, I just don't feel good. And which also contributed to the fact that absolutely no work was done on the house this week. The first 3 days I can excuse because of the rain, but Thursday and Friday, I mean, come on, it wasn't that bad. But I don't know what else the contractor has on his plate. He probably was put behind on a couple of other things, but darn it, my money spends too. So, but that's my sour grapes, and I squeezed my sour grapes enough to let out a little wine. So that was my little wine for the day. I'm sure when the weather clears up and the house is back on schedule, I will be feeling a lot better about life in general. So don't let me bring you down. I hope you had a good week. And until next week, when actually we'll probably be done with Dracula. I'm thinking there is maybe one more go around on this torch before I throw in the towel and call it done, or else decide to buy a lighting kit for it. The guy himself I'm very happy with how he turned out. the epoxying today finished him off, and his cape is attached and everything is good with the world on Dracula. Now the Nautilus, I did that to myself because I could have been done if I had just stuck to my original idea and finished wiring it up and called it done, but I had to go get fancy with the stand. So that's my own doing, and that'll take me into next week to finish that up properly. But the good news is I should be back on Batplane. Oops, stepped out of picture. Back in Batplane mode, pretty strong next week. Let me grab a couple more parts here and kind of put this together to show you the impressive wingspan. I might have to make an edit here, but no, there's the and the wings. You see, I've got the sub-assemblies done. It's a question of finishing them up and painting. And there's another one. They're just easier to paint when they are in chunks, but there you go. I mean, that's a heck of a Batplane. And that is the subject definitely for next week. So, until next week when we get back to these fun things, have a fun time. Be good to each other. Enjoy the crisp fall air if you have it in your neighborhood. And we'll see you back here next week, hopefully in a better mood. But until then, have a good one.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.